Well, howdy there, folks. James, politicalfriar.com, coming to you again. I got the LSE hat on, and although we're not going to talk about an international relations topic, we're just going straight history today. This video was inspired when I was watching a YouTube video with my wife last night, and it was from the New York Times, and they were putting together a Thanksgiving dinner. And one of the chefs flippantly commented that Thanksgiving is a celebration of the genocide of the Native American people in North America. And it just stuck in my craw because it's not true. That's not at all what Thanksgiving is about. It's not the history. It's not the reason why it became a federal holiday. It's not entirely to do with Native Americans, although Native Americans play an important role in the story. It certainly isn't designed to celebrate any kind of conquest, and it isn't an anti-Native holiday. It's mostly just unrelated. So I'm going to go through the history of Thanksgiving to try to get a sense of what actually happened out there in the world through my tiny little straw of influence here. And also want to remind folks, if you don't know the history, don't use it. You can make the point about the genocide of the natives in North America without employing a historical example that you just get wrong. Anyway, let's do the history of Thanksgiving. That sounds like fun. So, in 1621, we have the first Thanksgiving, at least what's largely recognized as the first Thanksgiving. Some Floridians will dispute this, but I like the original story, and I think it's probably most correct when you're talking about how this ended up being a holiday later on that we actually enjoy and the traditions that we celebrate, in 2023. So, in 1621, 53 survivors of the Plymouth colony. That's 53 out of 102 total. So about half of the Plymouth colony survived the first year and were able to bring in the very first harvest. These 53 survivors had a dinner with 90 natives from the Wampanoag people. Now, the Wampanoag people were military allies of the Plymouth colony. They fought together against other natives who sought to wipe both of them out. So the people sitting down at this dinner together were friends, colleagues, compatriots, fellow fighters for really survival would be the right word. And the Plymouth colony had some reason to fear annihilation. After all, that's certainly what happened in Roanoke, and there were almost certainly a Labrador colony that was also wiped out by natives in earlier times. And so the Plymouth people were giving thanks for the harvest and frankly giving thanks for their survival, and they were thanking the natives that helped them survive. So, Thanksgiving. It is also it's a nice fall festival. It is in line with other fall festivals around the world, such as Oktoberfest. And so it's pretty traditional to have a big feast when the harvest came in, and that's what the first Thanksgiving was. It was giving thanks to the natives, giving thanks to God, of course, because these were very religious people, and giving thanks just for their own survival because they had seen half of their number die in the previous year. So what was on the menu? Well, turkey is probably on the menu. It was native to the New England area. Chances are decent that there was turkey. We don't actually know for sure, but based off of what the regular diet was of the Plymouth colonists and the natives, their native allies, it was probably turkey, but probably also lobster and probably also seal and probably also swan and various other things. One thing that wasn't on the menu, though, was pie. See, the sugar stocks on the Mayflower had dwindled to nearly nothing, and they hadn't sorted out how to use maple or other sweeteners to make confections by 1621. And so all the desserts that you have are no, that's not historically accurate. Uh, the feast went off well, and the next year they didn't have it because it wasn't a tradition yet. However, in 1623, the same Plymouth colonists met with some of their same native allies. See, the alliance between the Wampanoag people and the Plymouth colony lasted for 50 years. This was a long term military alliance. So they met again in 1623 because there was a bad drought. And the harvest had come through and they had survived the bad drought. And the leader of the Plymouth colony says, you know what? It's time for another Thanksgiving. Another close call here. Let's give thanks. Let's celebrate with our allies. And they did. And from 1623 on, it became a tradition in the Plymouth colony to celebrate the harvest. After the harvest came in, they would invite their allies and their neighbors, and they'd have a big communal meal, and that became Thanksgiving. And that was a tradition that got adopted by other colonies as they spread out. It became a tradition in Rhode Island and Connecticut. It became a tradition in New York and uh, along the eastern seaboard. It stayed mostly in the north until the mid 1800s, but eventually it migrated down into the south too. In 1789, Washington, as one of his first acts as president, declared that the Americans should have a Thanksgiving for their victory over the British. This was the first Thanksgiving message, one that presidents mostly have adhered to and continued to send out most years. A message of gratefulness for the continuation of the country and its good fortune. Uh, Most states by the mid 1800s had actually adopted a state holiday. Various days in various months even, but in the fall as a opportunity to give thanks for the benefit and the bounty of the harvest and the year before. And come the Civil War in 1863, Lincoln made the Thanksgiving a official holiday for the first time ever. He did so at the behest of Sarah Josepha Hale. You won't recognize that name, but you would recognize her work. It goes, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. She wrote that. And she spent about 36 years campaigning to make Thanksgiving a national instead of just state or local holiday. And Lincoln was convinced by his Secretary of War and others that this would be an excellent way to start to heal the wounds of the Civil War. The idea being that you would have a national holiday, a day to give thanks, and a day, frankly, to mourn. His Thanksgiving message included prayers for the orphans and widows that were being made by the gear grinders of war. And so thanks was given again for survival. It wasn't a federal law yet. It was just a presidential proclamation. It took a little embarrassing episode in the 1930s before it became a federal holiday under law. See, it was Thanksgiving under Lincoln's proclamation was celebrated on the fourth Thursday of November. Sound familiar? Yeah, it is. In 1936, during the teeth of the Great Depression, really the second Great Depression, we can go into that history someday, but Franklin Roosevelt changed the presidential proclamation. He said instead of the fourth Thursday, it should be celebrated on the third Thursday. This was immediately derided as Franksgiving, not Thanksgiving, but Franklin Roosevelt's purpose was something that you will also recognize. He wanted the economy to get a boost based off of Christmas sales. Black Friday happens and we all go Christmas shopping. Well, what if you had another week to spend money? Maybe you would spend more. That was the idea. It didn't go over well. When the issue was brought to Congress, they passed a bill moving the Thanksgiving celebration back to the fourth Thursday, and Franklin Roosevelt signed it, chagrined. And that's how we have our federal holiday, where the banks are closed and we all have an opportunity to give thanks for the bounty that we received the previous year, give thanks for our continued survival and the continued success of the country. That's what Thanksgiving is about, and it's what it's always been about. It is not about masking some kind of terror or embarrassment. Anyway, I hope you liked that. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Leave me a like. Hit that subscribe button. That's the big thing for me right now is the subscribe button. And I really appreciate you.